It's that boring time of year where we got to come up with some kind of content to talk about. So today we are talking about stat projections for the running backs and for the tight ends. Welcome back to another Titan Bros video. Gabriel here today with Josiah, my brother, bringing you some stat projections. We're going to start off with some running backs. Is there anything you want to say before we just hop on into our video?
Yeah, just good to be back. We missed last week, busy and stuff, but it's good to be back. But like you said before the intro, is that we are officially in the off season. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, granted, our off season started in January, but there's draft to talk about, those free agency to talk about. So we had a lot of stuff to look forward to. But now is the slow, just you count the days until the season starts. Yes, it's boring days because for the most part, we know our team. We see what we got. Now we kind of want training camp to start. We want the preseason to start to see what we got. So now we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for topics. But this is projecting stats and what do you think people's gonna have. That's always fun to do. I always enjoy doing that anyway. So hopefully you people will enjoy our opinions.
Yeah, in my mind, we weren't going to have these conversations till like July or so once we start seeing what people look like in training camp and whatnot. But again, we're fresh out of stuff to talk about. I mean, there's some additions that might happen. Like they've already openly said they're going to add somebody at safety. They've said several times that Arden Key is a good situational pass rusher, so they'd like to add some depth there, some competition there. Neither's happened yet. So like there's like little things that might happen. You never know when a decent league average starter at right tackle gets cut in training camp. We scoop him up. Something like that. But for the most part, our roster's set. So we might as well go ahead and just jump on into some stat projections just for fun. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the running backs. I really don't know who's going to start. A lot of people just say, oh, it's going to be Tajay Spears as our starter. But then I stop and think about, who is Tajay Spears? He's basically Tony Pollard. You want him to turn into a Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard's been doing it. So I don't think there's an actual starter, but if they were pressed and had to give a starter, I would say it's Tony Pollard, but I feel like they're going to have a pretty dang even 50-50 split.
Yeah, because the thing about Tony Pollard is he's last 2 seasons he was 1,000-yard rusher. So is he dead? Him? No, but he can get 1,000 yards. Technically, right now we don't know Tajay Spears can.
Yeah, exactly. Because Tony Pollard, the 2 years that he was the starter / bell cow. Well, I guess technically he was only the starter 1 year, but the last 2 years he's gotten 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
So he can. Here's a question: do we want to write down the stat projections we do to see who's closer and just to have a little competition to see if we can get a win after the season?
Sure.
Okay. I don't think I even have anything to write with around here, but how about I just put it into my phone? How about that?
Yeah, that would be the modern thing to do.
Would be. Alrighty, so we're going to start off with Tony Pollard. We're going to go. Actually, do you want to do an individual receiving and rushing yards, or do you want to do like a combo?
What was that question?
Do you want it to be like a combination of receiving and rushing yards put together, or do you want it to be more like, I think he's going to have 800 rushing, 400 receiving, or do you just want to say 1,200 all-purpose yards?
I would just do rushing and things separate.
Everything separate, okay. All right, so we're going to start off with Tony Pollard. I'm going to do Tony Pollard first, and then you can do Tajay.
Okay.
Tony Pollard. Rushing, my projection,
Do we do touchdowns receiving and rushing, or how do you want to do that?
I mean, if we're doing the yards separate, we should probably do the touchdowns separate as well.
Copy that.
I say that, but I don't know if I want a competition to come down because I said he only gets 1 receiving touchdown and you say 3,
Mm-hmm.
So I almost feel like we should do total touchdowns.
All right.
So we'll separate the yards, but we'll do total touchdowns. Forgive us for kind of making up our rules here on the fly. But we just now decided to kind of make it a competition. But anyways, Tony Pollard, I am going to project him to have 1,050 rushing yards.
Okay.
You expecting a dip from him?
Well, yes, because last year he got basically all the carries this year. And maybe you and I have different ideas here, but I was hoping Tony Pollard gets 15 carries and Tajay Spears get 15 carries. Now that maybe not that many because that's 30 carries, but I was hoping it's pretty 50-50 here. Are you thinking more 70-30 Tony Pollard?
65-35, but Tony Pollard was still technically the backup to Ezekiel Elliott, not last year, but the year before, and he had over 1,000 yards.
I'll say this: I would be ecstatic if Tony Pollard got 1,000 yards, because if he got 1,000 yards, and I think that means we have a really good running game, because I think Tajay Spears is going to have a decent bit of rushing yards. But hey, maybe you're correct. But so I'm going to jump in and say what I think.
No, I'm just going to go ahead and give you all of it. I'm going to say rushing yards, or receiving yards, I'm only giving him 300. I'm going to say about 300 receiving yards. Those might need balanced out a little bit. Might be 900, 400. But I feel like they're going to make Tony Pollard the lead rusher because he's got so much more experience as a rusher than Spears. So 1,050, just barely breaking 1,000 rushing, 300 receiving yards, and a total of 6 TDs.
Okay. With me, I'm going to say rushing yards. I'm going to say 800. And then with receiving yards, I'm going to say let's do 300.
Can you make it 299 or 301? Because we have the exact. I said 300 receiving yards as well.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Well, which one? You taking the under or the over?
Let's do under. I'm just gonna write this down. And then I say touchdowns. He's gonna have 5.
Okay, perfect. Now we're gonna move it on.
I am curious about this because I don't know the answer to this. When we get, it's in the goal line and 2-yard line, well, who's going to be our back? Is it going to be either those two, or are we going to have another guy we want to try to pound it? Because neither of those are pounding running backs. I'm kind of curious how the touchdowns are going to go.
Yeah, we technically still have Hassan Haskins. We have Julius Chestnut. We have a couple other undrafted running backs we've brought in.
And here's what's funny. In my mind, before we started this, I said, I'm going to say 800 yards. I thought you were going to say, wow, that's a little high. But you went
no, because he'd be definitely taking a big dip if he several hundred-yard dip.
Again, and I guess you and I might have different opinions. I think they should be 50-50, and I was thinking, if anything, Tajay Spears should get more carries, because I think this is his team. I liked him because I think I liked him more last year than you did. I thought he made more stuff happen in Derrick Henry sometimes, and I thought he definitely deserves at least a 50-50 share this year. But I guess we shall see. Anyway, so up to me, Tajay Spears. Dang, I almost want to take Tony Pollard down a little bit, but I'm gonna say, but Spears, I'm gonna say 600 yards.
Okay, so you don't expect us to have a successful running attack at all?
Well, I don't think we're gonna run as much, so that's the thing. I think the averages will both be decent, but I don't think we're gonna run as much. Do you think we'll? Because you gotta always think, and we'll see what we say about Will Levis, but you can't give a quarterback, a bunch of yards and running backs, and I think we're going to throw more.
Unless you sustain drives. I think we've been conditioned to think that because Titans never sustain drives, and since we never sustain drives, nobody has stats on it.
No, that's true. But you're right. Yeah, I'm almost want to take Tony down a little bit and Tajay Spears up.
I kind of want to take Tony down a little bit. Maybe he barely doesn't break 1,000. I'm gonna change that and say he's 950 instead of 1,000. So he's not taking like a huge hit from the last 2 years of rushing because he's still only like 27, 28 years old.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna take. I'm actually gonna take Spears up to 700. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Then receiving yards, I'm gonna give him 400.
Okay, so now I got to change that
because I can see whoever gets the least amount of receiving rushing yards will get more in passing situations, and the rushing yards are going to go up a little bit. So then touchdowns with Spears, though, I'm going to give him 6.
Okay, we had very similar number on Spears. I have Spears at 735.
Okay,
rushing yards. 400. I had 400 receiving as well, but then you said 400, so I said 401.
Okay.
And then I put 7 touchdowns.
Okay.
7 total touchdowns. I mean, yeah, at this point, obviously Tajay Spears is not as good as Tony Pollard. Because again, Tony Pollard was basically, people were saying he's top 10 running back in the league until
I never just subscribed.
I never subscribed to that, but yeah, he's been seen as a top 10 running back until last year, or it was technically even last year's season. It was the playoff run in 2022. He broke something in his leg. I don't remember what it was. So the first like 8 or 9 games of the season, he was not good last year. But then he came on, and like the last, I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks of the season, he had like the most yards, most break tackles, most everything. So after he actually finally got healthy, then he went back to being his old self.
If you're correct, we're gonna have a heck of a running game, and I would be okay with that. What did you say yards? I'm sorry for Spiels. You said 700, right?
735.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. That's almost a 2,000 yards rushing between the two of them.
If we run left, then yes, because I think Skoronski, Cushenberry, and J.C. Latham will make some nice holes to the left.
And that's another thing. I'm used to, running backs have to break 2 tackles to get to the line. So if they get holes, that should help. Because both these backs are jukier, so they can get running and then get like a safety in space. They can juke them. That might help us a lot. Actually, I don't know why I think of this. I remember Spiels in last preseason got a good run because there was a big hole and he went right through it and juked the heck out of some safety and thinking, oh, I hope we could do that. But you know how bad our offensive line is. And so he never got as much space as I wanted him to because our offensive line sucked. But anyway, so I am excited to see what a different running game will look like. We're not going to be a ground and pound. It's going to be a little more space, spread them out, and maybe running not so much with 2 tight ends. You know what I mean? So I am curious to see what that's going to look like. And it's something different for us, for sure.
I think for me, I just feel like it'll be nice to be able to run the ball, but teams not know we're running the ball. Because we could see the heavy formations with Derrick Henry in there. Everybody knew we were running. We could see the not heavy formations and have whatever our backup running back was in there. And people just knew, like Dontrell Hilliard or last year Spears, and people knew, yeah, it's not going to be a run play this play probably. So I'm glad that's over with. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go ahead and move into tight ends. I'm not worried about the dude we just signed, who I just looked him up and I forgot what his name was already. He's just going to be he's a career blocking tight end. He's a 31-year-old, got drafted in 2016, and still doesn't even have 1,000 yards receiving in his entire career. So it's not even worth discussing him. We're just going to go Josh Wiley and Chig Okonkwo. So I'm going to do the honors for Chig. All we're doing is yards and touchdowns, all right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have Chig pegged in at about 625 yards. He came on 2 years in a row, started off slow, and came on strong at the end. I think we're going to be passing the ball a lot more. That ups his numbers. But the reason he's only getting not even 200 yards more than last year is because technically Chig was our number 2 wide receiver, our 2 in yards last year. But the reason he's not getting a huge jump in my mind is, I think we have, which is a good problem. I think we have too many other mouths to feed. And I don't think I think there's a chance where he doesn't quite get on the field as much as he would like, might say, why. Of Chig, the blocking tight end, which I got to memorize his name, and Josh Wiley. Chig's the worst blocker of the 3. So the other 2 will have value as blockers. But Chig pops out in the slot a lot. But now we have a powerhouse like Tyler Boyd in the slot.
That's true.
So I think Tyler Boyd could really honestly kind of eat into some of Chig's opportunities.
That's an excellent point, actually.
I still have him at 625. I still believe in him. I do still think we're going to throw the ball. Honestly, I could see it being an ignorant amount at times. In fact, that's what a lot of the Titans reporters are saying. They said, we have not seen this many passes thrown in a practice since obviously the 6 years under Vrabel. And even before that, they said they are just throwing the dang ball so much in practice, it's unreal. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it.
But like you said, I like it, but I don't want to completely forget the running game. Like I'm interested to see what our running backs can do here. So I hope we don't and not to mention, I think our offensive line is more suited for a nice running game. Not that I want to run more than we pass. Don't get me wrong, but I think we have some models at that line that can create some holes. So we shall see.
I do agree. I got him at 4 touchdowns, by the way, just to iron out my thing. 4 touchdowns, 625, 4.
That's good. And you talked me down the yards because I actually was thinking I was going to be a little ambitious and I would say 700. But everything you just said was good points. Tyler Boyd could really eat up his slot time. So that's a good point though. So I'm actually going to go myself 585 and 4 touchdowns. Did you say 4?
I did say 4.
I'm going to say 3.
Okay. Yeah, Chig has not scored a lot of touchdowns in his career. I think he's
He has
like
not.
2 each year, I think.
Mine is supposed to be nice red zone officers because we don't score that many touchdowns anyway.
No, that's the biggest problem.
we did every time we got in the red zone, we just ran the ball.
And now that I stop and think, we didn't have many receiving or touchdowns or throws last year because Will Levis only threw 8, but I think that's about as many as Tannehill threw. So they only had like 16 touchdowns last year from our. That's ridiculous. I'm gonna look up Ryan Tannehill real quick to see if that's even true. I really think it is, but that's pathetic. What a pathetic display.
You know what I was thinking? Like
he only threw 4, so we had 12 touchdown passes thrown last year. That is disgusting. Well, I guess Derrick Henry, I think, threw 1. So
yeah,
that's crazy.
All right. I guess I'll start with Josh Riley. With receiving yards, I'm gonna say 252, and then 1 touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I really would love to see Josh Riley take a step forward, but I do agree with you. And again, a good problem, just too many mouths to feed. I just don't know if he's gonna be able to carve him a rollout. Maybe he will. I mean, who knows? Maybe he will. But in my mind, I do still think he's going to be the inline tight end. And he'll have a play in the red zone where you think it's a run, but he sneaks out and they throw him a touchdown pass over top. That's why I have him. Had him at 1 touchdown, but that's what you said as well. So I upped him to 2. I was not going to go 0. So I'll go 2 touchdowns. I had him at 275. Nothing insane. Nothing crazy.
If you think about it, I'm thinking like, Josh Ryan, maybe he could be something. I'm like, but if you're scheming a play, you got Chig above him, you got Tyler Boyd, you got Hopkins, you got Ridley. There's just so many other people you would obviously scheme a play to them more than you would Josh Riley. You know what I mean?
Plus, I still think Pollard and Spears are going to get their catches
exactly
as well.
So exactly. So this doesn't really make much sense, barring injuries, for Riley to get many opportunities.
Now, I will say it'll be a big old difference if Will Levis is throwing the ball between 28 and 38 times a game as opposed to 15 to 25 like it's been the last 6 years.
I don't know about you. I want us to throw way more than we used to, but I don't want stupidness like Chargers would do. But I'm like 35 passes, and yet we still get 20 to 22 runs between the 2 running backs. That's more what I would like. What do you think?
I agree, because there's teams like, honestly, what Tony Pollard kind of came from, where there would be games where for no reason Dak Prescott would throw the ball 52 times and they'd have 11 rushes. Yeah, and where it'd be a close game where it's not like they're getting their butts kicked or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, throw it sometime. Like Josh Allen's the king of it.
Yeah.
Or whoever's calling his plays, whether it's who'd they lose to the Giants? Bald dude.
I had the name and tip my thought.
Yeah, I can't see the guy's name.
Something. That guy, bald guy.
Yeah, I can't think of his name. Oh, Dayball.
Brian
Dayball. Yeah, sheesh. There we go. Yeah, Brian Dayball. It was him for a while, and then whoever their offensive coordinator is now, I can't even remember.
They fired him in the season and got another one.
Oh, that's right. But yeah, Josh Allen just throws the ball every single play. Just snaps the ball and just running around and throws it. But anyways, yeah, that's irresponsible. So, but yeah, so Josh Riley 275, 2 touchdowns. Honestly, I kind of feel like I should put him 0 before I give him 2, but
he's just so tall. You just think somewhere in the red zone he's gonna get one.
Yeah.
Because I said that last year and he got only 1. That was off of a trick play.
I remember the trick play. What was it?
Derrick Henry.
Was that who Derrick Henry threw it to?
Yeah. Remember, Will Levis tried the heck out of. He threw a couple to him in the red zone, the Steelers game. Well, we watched live, but he couldn't complete them. You know what I was just thinking? Because we're done, right?
Yep.
Something I was just thinking is, we got all these for the first time in a long time, I feel like Titans have a lot of decent weapons here. We got some options, maybe even decent offensive line. All this stuff, and we're talking about we hope we throw the ball 35 times and maybe even more. But like, man, this is actually a lot of stuff of us just assuming Will Levis is going to be the guy. That he's going to be good. You know what I mean? So like, that's a big question mark. We don't know how good he's going to be, and can he stay healthy? That's another thing.
Can he stay healthy? That's a big thing. Now, I will say Mason Rudolph is a semi-capable backup. He has a winning record as a starter.
And I would say if let's say Will Levis goes down in week 7 for the rest of the season, and Rudolph is your quarterback, I'm just gonna be like,
toast. We're toast.
Yeah, we're toast. It's like if he has to play 3 or 4 games, maybe we can go 2-2, 3-1, maybe depends on the schedule. But yeah, if he gets hot and he comes in week 7, I mean, we're toast. Because I think Texans are going to be the team that won't be chasing down the whole season. And if Rudolph's that guy, I'll take CJ Stroud over him any day.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess that's all. We got for today. We'll probably bring it in next week with the receivers, going through all the receivers catching. I said catching yards. Who says catching yards? The receiving yards and the touchdowns. But so that's going to do it for us today. Got anything you want to add?
No, I think that's it. I think we had a pretty good show. Good job, Caleb.
Okay, it was fun. We'll talk about wide receivers next week. So peace out.